Hello to Darkness344 here, and in today's video I'll be talking a bit about the new Snapshot. So I'm currently in Java Edition just because it was a bit easier to get to the Snapshot, and there are two main blocks I'm kind of excited about. So there's the copper bulb, and then there's also the crafter block. So this block is basically an auto crafter block, so we've seen similar kind of concepts before. I think SciCraft had some like vanilla tweaks mod or something that had an auto crafter, and that was pretty cool. So for the base game, auto crafting, it's not like super vanilla, but it's a pretty cool feature anyway. But for redstone wise, at least computational redstone, I've seen people make base 10 counters out of this block, which are pretty cool and very small. However, to be perfectly honest, base 10 counters were kind of in the game already, because you could always just you could use a modulo 10 counter or whatever. But because of the new crafter block, they're a lot smaller, so I think the new crafter block may be used a bit in computational redstone. However, the main thing that I'll think will be used is this copper bulb block. So why is everyone talking about the copper bulb block? Well, first of all, it can be used as a T flip-flop. So this is, well, extremely good because it's basically a one block T flip-flop. You can of course also have this comparator as the actual output of the block, but visually it's basically a one block T flip-flop. So this is great because before, T flip-flop designs used to be kind of big, so this is the one that I use most of the time because we get both the normal output as well as the inverted output. There are smaller designs, there are different designs, but this one was pretty cool. Well, compared to of course just a copper bulb, as you can see it's much smaller and a lot faster too, only taking a couple ticks to activate, where this one took, well, several. So why is a well, small and fast T flip-flop so useful? Well, one, you can use it as a T flip-flop, so a lot of people do use T flip-flops in computational redstone. I prefer using D flip-flops, but sometimes you do need to use a T flip-flop. So the other reason you can use it is, of course, you can make counters really simply now. So this is just a very simple ripple counter, and if you've seen any of my previous videos or tutorials, ripple counters, even just simple ones, can get quite big. So especially solid state ones, where this is, I'd consider this as solid state because there's no moving parts. There is the light, but of course redstone emits light anyway, so I don't think it's too much of a concern. And as you can see, it's a very fast ripple counter. So this is great because it very much simplifies circuits. And over here I've got a slightly more large version which also has a reset built in. So notice that it's not a ripple up counter. So some people say the outputs are inverted. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's just a down counter. Of course you can invert the outputs to make it an up counter, but down counter, yeah, that's the normal outputs is just a down counter. So this circuit that I've made has the reset button, of course, which just resets it. I'm sure there's smaller versions. This is a very large version that I designed in like 5 minutes. So I'm sure there'll be much smaller versions of this counter coming out. So what am I most excited about with these T flip-flop counter designs, I guess? Well, synchronous counters. So this is a ripple counter, which means there's, well, a slight bit of ripple. As you can see, they don't all instantly turn on. It's this one, then this one, then this one. And that ripple is kind of bad if you have a very high frequency. So if you're counting very fast and also taking the results out really fast, you're going to get problems where you might accidentally take out one of those states where it's doing that ripple. Synchronous counters, like this one over here, which is kind of terrible, don't have this problem because all the outputs are meant to activate at the exact same time. As you can see, there's no ripple at all. So let's just go all the way up. Yeah, there's basically no ripple. This counter isn't exactly the best design. I'll show a much better one in a minute. But they basically use a combinational logic and stuff to make the outputs all activate at the exact same time, which means it's perfect for stuff like a program counter, as you have, of course, a very high frequency. If you're doing really fast computational redstone, you need a very high clock speed, so that also means you need a very powerful counter as well. So why am I really excited about asynchronous counters? Well, previously, Bedrock Edition didn't really have any good T flip-flop design, which also meant they didn't really have any good synchronous counter design. So previously, to make a synchronous counter, you'd have to use some sort of T flip-flop like this one, or some sort of solid state one, which is just bulky and annoying. where on Java Edition, which is the version I'm on, you had this very nice design over here. I think this was by Matt Batwings. It's extremely small and it just works. Let's just try it out. As you can see, it just counts up. The problem about this is that, of course, it doesn't work on Bedrock because of update order. Because on Bedrock Edition, the update order of these repeaters and the repeater lock aren't the same as on Java, this counter just does not work. However, with the introduction of the new copper block, we kind of solved this issue. Because there's not really too much in the ways of update order in this new counter design that I've made, we don't have the whole update order problem with this design. And not only that, it's smaller as well. So where Matt Batwing's counter was 3x3 by however tall you want it, my new counter design is 2x3, however tall you want it, which makes it a bit thinner, and you can kind of take the output from anywhere. It's a bit more versatile. So on this counter, you can take the output from any of these sides. Or on this counter, of course, you have, well, the copper bulb lamps built in already, so you don't even need these redstone lamps. And you can take the output from any of these sides, as well as any of these sides, just by adding comparators, which does make the design a bit bigger, but it's still small because you can just take the output from here. So let's see this counter in action. So I can just increment it like this, and as you can see, it counts up. And the other thing is, with this counter over here, you do need a very specific pulse. So if I just leave it going, it's going to break. As you can see, it breaks. Whereas this counter, I'm pretty sure you don't need a pulse at all. You can just leave it as long as you want, at least the input. Which makes it good for, say, if you wanted to use a button, instead of having to, on this counter at least, having to use comparators and make a pulse generator or shortener or whatever. So it just makes it a bit simpler. So this counter was definitely the best design of counter, at least on Java Edition, before the introduction of the copper blocks, but I'm sure this new counter circuit, or at least variations of it, will be used a lot more in Computational Redstone. I'm pretty happy with this design, but as you can probably tell, and it's extremely simple. So it may not work on Bedrock Edition as is, because the only thing that has to change is these glass blocks. I'm pretty sure they'll have to change for slabs on Bedrock Edition, but that's not too much of a concern. It's just a very simple swap. So let's actually kind of show how this is made. So I'm not going to do a tutorial because it's very simple. You can kind of spot visually. So we have this glass tower, or slabs if you're on Bedrock Edition, with redstone on. Then we have the copper bulbs themselves, and they all have this redstone dust on them as well. And this is so the redstone can be redirected, as you can see. Then out of that copper bulb, we have a comparator on just normal mode going into a redstone lamp, or just a solid block in general, which has a redstone torch on the side going into a solid block, providing power for the next level. So as you can see, it works quite well, and I'm pretty sure if I attach a very fast redstone clock, it should just count very fast as well. So let's just have a look. So I've just made a very simple clock. It can go faster, just the torch burns out. So actually I'm not entirely sure you do need the redstone torch, so let's just plug it in without that redstone torch. And yeah, as we can see, the counter's very fast. Let's just speed it up a bit. I might need to add a repeater here. And as you can see, probably one of the faster counters you'll get. And of course it's fully synchronous, and you can expand it pretty far up. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this counter design, and I hope to see it used in a lot more builds. And when it does finally come into the actual game on Bedrock Edition, I hope it's just as good, and I really hope they don't nerf these copper blocks by making them slower to turn on and off, like redstone lamps, and like what they did with the skulk sensor. Everyone kind of freaked out about the skulk sensor, saying like, oh, motion sensor, wireless redstone, but in reality, I didn't think it would be any good. And as we know now, it isn't actually that good for wireless redstone because it's very slow. So if they slow these down, it's going to nerf them a bit. So hopefully they don't, because this counter is extremely fast, and I hope they keep it like this. So the last thing I want to talk about is the new command. So this is actually really insane for Computational Redstone, because it means we don't need to use any custom servers or mods or anything to speed up redstone. So the redstone system is limited to 10 ticks per second, or well, 20 game ticks per second, so 10 redstone ticks per second. and which means the fastest theoretical redstone you can get is 10 Hertz. You can technically make a 10 Hertz or 5 Hertz computer with like comparative priming and stuff, at least on Java Edition. However, it's very hard and complicated, and it's much easier to make, say, like a 1 Hertz computer and then just speed it up using a mod. However, that's no longer needed because we now have this tick command, so we can do tick freeze, for instance, and we can freeze the current tick it's on. So this is great for debugging, so tick unfreeze and turn it back on. But now we can also speed the game up, so tick rate, and then let's just set this to say 200, which speeds it up by 10 times. And as you can see, the game gets a tiny bit more choppy, movement gets a bit weird, but now we actually have fast redstone, which means redstone computers are going to be insanely fast and actually playable in real time, which is great. I'm really excited. I can't wait till this comes to Bedrock because, well, this is insane. Let's actually try push the limits. So let me try that again. So maybe tick 2000, tick rate even. Yeah, that's kind of insane how fast that goes. Well, now it's raining, no rain particles. But this is actually insane, so we're going to have some crazy redstone. Let's just push it a tiny bit more, just to see how much we can actually get. Oh, there we go. We have a hard limit of 10,000. So let's actually see what that looks like. And yeah, that's pretty fast. That's actually going to make CPUs very fast. Of course, with mods and stuff, you can make it a bit faster. But for just in-game, that's actually kind of insane, and it'll make things a lot more actually usable and, well, lovely sounding as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about these new changes, and I'm sure this tick rate can also be modded because the game's not actually super choppy at the moment. So I'm sure they'll find ways to make it faster, which would be crazy, at least for CPUs. So yeah, hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'm out.